I'm Alex Strong, and I'm a sister of Alpha Kappa Delta Phi, and I crossed from Omicron chapter. I'm the current International Development and Operations intern, and this video was basically created to help fellow sisters like yourselves answer behavioral interview questions using the STAR method. The STAR method is a technique that was created to help people stay on track with their answers and to not doze off and say random facts that interviewers don't want to hear. So the S stands for situation, the T stands for task, the A stands for action, and the R stands for results. If you would like more information and guidelines about this technique, go ahead and click below.
Okay, after being invested in AKD5 for 2 years, I decided that I really wanted to give back to this organization what it gave me initially. With that being said, I decided to run for presidency and got elected successfully. After my first semester as president, I learned a lot about myself as a leader and about working with others. There came a lot of adaptation as I was working with a whole bunch of different sisters, which each had their unique leading styles. Along with that, I did learn a lot of the logistics of being president. I learned about handling it behind the scenes, all the meetings, and I also grew out of my comfort zone just to being able to walk into meetings with more confidence rather than with that, kind of shy self-esteem. But lastly, I do really appreciate this position because I feel like it's preparing me for my future career goals. I am a management degree, so I think it's going to prepare me for my future aspirations as well.
I think leadership can come in a lot of forms. It doesn't have to be just from a president leading her organization. It can also come from within members of the organization. One time when I was secretary of my sorority, I had the responsibility of taking notes during our meetings each week. Our meetings would go through what events we are hosting, what we needed to do to get things done and planned out. And I would note all of that and send it out in an email for our members to look over and then accomplish the tasks they needed to do before the next week. However, an issue that we started to notice was the fact that sometimes members weren't meeting the deadlines that we needed to meet in order to finish planning an event in a timely manner, or finishing creating certain designs in order for us to advertise those events, which resulted in poor turnout. And from identifying that issue, I came up with the solution of, as the meeting was going through, I would take notes on the different action items that each member would have to do for the next week. And in the email that I would send out, rather than having to click the link and synthesize themselves what they had to do, I would put in the email text itself, person A has to reach out to this organization. Person B needs to book these rooms. Person C needs to finish designing these flyers by a certain date. And from that, we were able to notice more people meeting deadlines, less miscommunication, and overall host more successful events as a chapter.
So being a non-traditional student, one of my biggest goals was to eventually get to a four-year university. Not going straight to a college out of high school just gave me a really unique experience, and I had to overcome a lot of different barriers. But I think the biggest things that helped me reach my goal and get me where I am today was definitely using all of my resources, having a good work ethic, and just seeing the bigger picture when things were getting really difficult.
So one of my goals in general is to just become more comfortable speaking to other people in what may be considered difficult situations. For my particular example, I was actually put in a position where I did have to learn to do that. I had a very difficult customer at work. Basically, they got in the habit of taking what you were saying and kind of twisting it to their advantage. So it made our company not look so great when they might be misconstruing or misunderstanding the situation at hand. Something I had to learn to do to cope with this was I learned how to interact with the customer, kind of learn what things matter to them or any tips and little things that they might be more sensitive to. So basically just learning to adapt myself to the situation understanding how to talk to the customer. Over time, they did kind of simmer down a little bit and became more comfortable with a working relationship with me. But I think it was also very helpful to learn how to talk in those situations, because after going through 1.5 years of supporting this difficult customer every single day, going through this process with them, I definitely feel more confident in my abilities to handle these types of difficult situations. And sometimes you just have to be put into the situation in order to learn from it.
All right, so one of the most important things I've actually learned through leadership positions is that making mistakes is all a part of human nature. One of the mistakes that I've actually made is, as fundraising chair, I forgot to sign us up for our fundraising week. I definitely did take a huge toll on myself for that, but the best part about making mistakes is learning and applying. The first thing I did was communicate with my active body and be completely transparent with them about what happened, just to build their trust back again. Additionally, I did add another fundraiser, which was not that big of a deal, and I was still able to bring in the funds that our chapter needed. Making mistakes is definitely something that we take hard on ourselves, but I think it's one of the best parts because that's how we learn. It's also not about the mistakes that you make, but how we react to it and how we move forward.
Yeah, I feel like people make mistakes all the time, so it's totally natural and happens to everyone. So just wanted to note that first. For me personally, in my first job out of college, I was working in banking, so where we cover clients. So one mistake that I made was actually a miscommunication to one of our largest Japanese banks. So I was freaking out, basically miscommunicated a number, was off by a couple million. So as a new person to the team, it's like, what do you do? So first and foremost, you have to tell your manager and escalate the situation immediately. The more you hide it, the more you wait, the worse the situation will be. So tell who you have to tell, because everything can be fixed so long as there's time to fix it. So really how this resolved itself was I escalated to my manager, and we basically sent out the right information, and then we got the client what they needed by the deadline. So ultimately, just make sure you inform the right people, don't sit on it too long, and know that mistakes can be fixed.
Yeah, so as fundraising chair, I wanted to come in and do a fundraiser that we've never done before, and it was right around Valentine's Day, so we called it the Loves in the Air fundraiser, and we basically sold roses. When I called a couple weeks ahead of time for the rose shop, I actually ordered 150 roses, but when I got there, she actually had 150 dozen roses there, so as you can tell, a very large mistake, 12 times as many roses as I wanted. So basically, I had to barter with her, and we came to the agreement that we both had a miscommunication over the phone about how many roses we wanted. So we ended up only taking about 70 dozen. And from that 70 dozen, I did a couple things to make sure we could at least break even, since it didn't seem like we were going to. But I basically lowered the price for when we tabled in the university union, and tabling is basically where you just sell to people walking by on campus. So basically, I lowered the prices for that, saying it's like a last-minute sale, and then we also added more tabling hours. So instead of just tabling for 2 hours each day, we did 5 hours each day. And then additional to that, we also added a delivery option for our alumni that are in SoCal and NorCal. That way we could sell to them as well, and since we already had sisters driving down for that weekend for Valentine's Day anyways, we were able to sell a lot more that way. So the end result, we ended up making around $200, which was very surprising because I was scared we wouldn't even break even. And then it also kind of just showed us that what we can achieve, what we are possible of, because none of us ever thought we'd be able to sell 70 dozen roses, especially considering we only had 150 single roses pre-sale. So it was really just inspiring to see what we could do and what we could do in the future.
So just this last week, actually, I had a lot of deadlines due for work, as well as schoolwork, and then getting ready to come to mid-year for AKD Phi. And so being at work, there was a lot of pressure coming from my boss just to finish those deadlines before I left because she needed it done, as well as me having to time manage and finish my schoolwork and get ready to leave for mid-year. But at the end of the day, I was able to finish all of the projects that I needed to finish for work, got all my assignments turned in, and came to mid-year. So, yeah.
So for a period of 3 months, I did have a very dissatisfied customer that I had to work with on a daily basis. Essentially, the customer was asking for daily updates on all of their open support tickets that they had with our team. So through this process, I had to ensure that I provided value to the customer, needed to make sure that I was held accountable for my actions, and completed the requests that they were asking of me. This involved sending them daily updates at the end of each day about the status of their open tickets. But in order to prepare for that, of course, I also had to make sure I worked internally to ensure that their issues were being pushed along, making time for me to work with the internal teams to understand the issues that they were presenting and the customer's perspective on why they felt it was urgent, and also making time to prepare those updates for the customer. So I would say it was a lot of time management skills I had to learn, basically set a cadence for myself on when I needed to complete all of the items in order to accomplish this goal, and a lot of calendar updates and just staying on top of scheduling and meetings. So in the end, after those 3 months period, the customer actually felt much more confident in our support process, and they agreed that it was not necessary to continue with this. So I would say that a lot of those time management skills, especially ones you learn as an active, really helped me in the workplace to work more efficiently under pressure.
When I was a second year in undergrad, I was recently elected as the fundraising chair for my sorority. I was the graphic design publicity chair for my cultural org, and that was all on top of the rigorous course load I had as a computer science and business double major. When it came to midway through the semester, there arose an issue of a lot of competing responsibilities I had to the two different organizations as well as to myself as a student. For my cultural organization, there was a lot of design work that I had to do for the multiple events we were hosting on top of the major event, our cultural show. For my sorority, it was our philanthropy month, and we needed to plan multiple fundraisers in order to reach our goal for fundraising that semester. And then for schoolwork, it was midterm season, so exams were right around the corner. What I did to manage all of those different tasks and responsibilities was a lot of upfront communication at first. I made sure to reach out to the leaders of the organizations as well as my professors to better understand the deadlines and better prioritize my time. Additionally, I learned to better delegate. I delegated to my co-chair in my cultural org. Rather than taking on all of the flyers and initial designs myself, I asked her to help with certain events, and that alleviated the burden off of me, and we were able to produce higher quality flyers because we had more time to do each of them. With my sorority, rather than doing all of the planning, I created and organized all of the different tasks I had to do for the different fundraising events onto a spreadsheet. And from there, sisters were able to see and help out, as well as delegate to them the different tasks I had to do, whether that was reaching out to a restaurant, or communicating with the student affairs, or reaching out to other organizations to host events with us. From that, I was able to make more time for school and to focus on the upcoming midterms. As a result of doing the upfront communication, the delegation, I ended the semester very well. I was able to help produce great flyers for the cultural show, which resulted in a high turnout. And for my sorority, I was able to fundraise a lot for our philanthropy that semester.
Yeah, so actually just this past quarter, I had 2 executive board positions on my sorority. I was VP New Member Educator. In addition to that, I was VP of Treasury. I still worked on campus as well at Career Services. And then I also had school, as every college student does. And basically, I had to mentor 5 girls and teach them what being in Alpha Kappa Delta Phi was all about. I had to keep up with the national dues, fundraising, and help out with our bank account and manage that. And then additional to that, I had work that I needed to do, so helping with career fairs, helping students make appointments, and other stuff like that. And then I did have midterms and term papers. What I did to manage all of these things was I just planned out my schedules day by day. I would have a daily to-do list, and if I didn't finish a thing on my daily to-do list, which happened quite a lot, I would just move it to the priority spot on the next day, so I would make sure to get it done. And that really helped me keep track of what I needed to do, so I wouldn't forget to do anything. And basically, it helped me just get my whole schedule intact as well. So what ended up happening was I crossed 5 amazing kids into the sisterhood and taught them what really being a sister in Alpha Kappa Delta Phi meant. Our bank account is great. I met all the deadlines to pay dues for, to pay fines for, and stuff. And in addition to that, I did keep up with my work and my class schedule, and it ended up getting pretty good grades this quarter.